I wanted to make this video to shed light on what racial phenotypes are the most attractive when it comes to the opposite sex. So this is going to be for men and women. So whenever I give a phenotype in this tier list, let's say I talk about the Nordic phenotype, as you can see at the top left. I already have done the ranking, so there's no guessing game here. I'm just going to give you what you want to see. Let's say the Nordic type. It's going to be universal for men and women. There will be some stipulations if I feel like maybe one race where there, let's say, men and women of that race, maybe if I feel that the men might be more attractive of that race, I'll say it. And if I think the women are more attractive of that race, I'll say it. But this is going to be a universal application. So yeah, that's how I'm going to structure the video. So let's just get into it. So we're going to start from D, the D category, all the way up. So we have a bunch of phenotypes here. We have Bantoid phenotype, which is basically just African phenotype. You got a bunch of African phenotypes here. You got Somali phenotype, which is kind of Eurasianoid mixed with sub-Saharan African. Okay, so you got the first one over here where I'm pointing to is Bantoid, which is basically just a sub-Saharan African. The right is a Somali. Then you have another sub-Saharan African with a little bit different skin tone than the first one. Then you have Aboriginal Australian, another Aboriginal Australian. I believe this is the Melanesian phenotype. Then you have the Dravidian. This is basically an Indian, but this is Dravidian skewing Indian. So a lot of AASI, not much Iranian Neolithic farmer in this one. Very Dravidian heavy. So let's talk about the first one. The first one, which is the full-blooded sub-Saharan African, very dark skin. This is the type of phenotype you're going to see in like Nigeria. You're going to see this deep into the sub-Saharan jungles. You're going to see this type of phenotype working in the mines. Trying to mine blood diamonds. Yeah, this is the type you're going to see. These are going to be African warlords. You're going to see this phenotype consistently across the Congo. I would say Ghana and more Western Africa. You might see some mix with European ancestry because the Dutch colonized. Yeah, you have the Eurowakans, but this is going to be the unadmixed African, the sub-Saharan African. We're going to put this at obviously the D category because it's just not. I mean, the data shows it's not really, attractive. Women aren't batting out for guys like this. Women are batting out for certain guys. It's gonna be the African American phenotype, which is probably, I would say the African American phenotype is probably the best looking African phenotype. I actually would say even Somalis are not bad in terms of like pure bone structure, but there's other problems that come with their attractiveness, which I'm going to get into. But you have, I would say this is the lowest of the low in terms of attractiveness. Well, I would say the other ones on this category might be a bit lower, but I will say that the other ones coming up are going to be a lot lower. And also, my ranking goes from, so the ones on the very end are going to be the worst looking ones of that category, and the ones over here are going to be the best looking. So just keep that in mind. So yeah, this is going to be pretty bad in terms of phenotype, but not the worst out of this category. Because they got this phenotype, very broad nose. You usually have like very yellowish eyes from the jaundice, from all the parasites and diseases going on, malaria and all this stuff that's going on in Africa. Very huge lips, which aren't very attractive. Just overall, not very good. Moving on to the Somali phenotype. This one, While I would personally consider it not the most horrible, the problem is that when you look at a Somalian, they got jacked up teeth a lot of the time. Look at Captain Phillips. Captain Phillips had this problem of like a lot of these Somali pirates. They had like fucked up teeth because they suffer from a lot of these diseases there. It's obviously not a first world country. You got a lot of these problems that kind of go into how like their phenotype it's already bad, but it's even worse. They got huge ass foreheads, and a lot of them are kind of more on they kind of look inbred because they have some West Eurasian ancestry from the Arabic invasions. Like Somalia isn't purely sub-Saharan African. It's there's also is some West Eurasian Neolithic farmer ancestry in there from Iran. So it's not a purely sub-Saharan African. I would say though, I would say that the smaller nose, it definitely is a plus. But they got frail bodies. They're kind of tall, but just not very up there. I would say that if they could improve, it would be definitely not having huge ass fucking foreheads that you would see, and the leader from Marvel, his big ass forehead. That's the problem they suffer from. So they kind of look inbred too. So remove the inbreeding, remove the big ass forehead. Maybe you have something to work with because they have smaller noses, right? So I would say that's definitely a point for them. So yeah, moving on to the next the sub-Saharan African phenotype. And here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. These three phenotypes are very close to each other in terms of what I would rate them in attractiveness. I would say they're almost tied. So just because this African phenotype is down here does not make it necessarily worse than these two. Because they're all kind of bad, but they also come kind of close in terms of, how close they are in terms of the ranking in this specific category. This one isn't too bad, actually, in terms of this ranking. This one, you can see, has a bit lighter skin. The skin tone is different. It's more warmer. It's not as dark. But I would say it's honestly, it's basically the same one as this one, just with lighter skin. Warmer skin. That might be a plus, but I would say these are pretty ranked. They're pretty much the same. Not much variance. So we're going to move on. I would say I might have put too many phenotypes here, but, as a racialist, you kind of have to, not all phenotypes are the same, right? You're going to have some very small differences that are subtle, but they do make a difference. Now we have the Melanesian, you have the Aboriginal Australian phenotype. This is actually pretty bad. Like, if you look at an Aboriginal Australian, they are not very attractive. I would say probably at the bottom tier of the entire planet. They actually have a lot of relation with the Dravidian population of India, the Indian subcontinent. But I would say that obviously they don't have the Iranian Neolithic farmer and steppe ancestry, which makes Indians a bit more West Eurasian shifted. So this one's going to be pretty fucking bad. I would say though, these people can kind of LARP as black because a lot of people don't know anything about phenotypes. These ones are a bit more masculine, in my opinion, than the Dravidian phenotype, which I'm going to talk about soon. These ones have more. It's not much, but marginally better, better facial structures. But they're still pretty bad. Still very bad. Same with this one. Basically the same thing. These are like Melanesians. Very, very unattractive. But, I would say, they're basically the same thing. So I'm not going to get too much into that. Now you have the Dravidian phenotype, this is going to be your stereotypical Indian that's kind of more shifted towards, the Dravidian sort of ancestry. They're not really, a lot of these Indians who have this ancestry, they almost have no Neolithic Iranian farmer ancestry or steppe ancestry. These are going to be from the very, very South India, not like the Indus Valley. This is going to be very, very south. This is going to be your I don't know my Indian map right now, but this is going to be near Goa. This is going to be like your southern, like Sri Lankan. This is your Sri Lankan phenotype. South India. I don't think these guys are. I'm not hating on them. These guys, like, go to Sri Lanka. It can actually be pretty fun there. They got it's kind of tropical, but you know, the problem with these is that separate to the African, the African phenotypes, which I would say the reason why the Africans are skewed higher is because, well, they're all kind of in a bad category. They do have somewhat of a more dimorphic face. The Dravidian face is not very dimorphic. They kind of got all the they got obviously the dark skin, but with no really masculine features. Very, very underdeveloped jaw. Not a lot of lower jaw. Not very high cheekbone. Well, some of them can look pretty good. Don't get me wrong, but the ones you see today, very underdeveloped lower third. Their mandibles pretty underdeveloped. Their maxilla isn't very developed. They got this fucking mustache you see a lot of the time. Not very good. So this is going to be your D category. All right, this is going to be your D category. Moving on to C. I don't want to make this video too long. I'm going to nerd out, and I don't want you guys to get bored. So we're going to continue. Your C category, you got a lot of the proto-Mongoloids and Mongoloid phenotypes. This is going to be your Amerindians and basically your East Asians and Southeast Asians. You're going to basically your Mongoloid and proto-Mongoloid populations, although indigenous people are a bit more ancient North Eurasian shifted, so they kind of have some West Eurasian ancestry, but it's not much. I personally have a little bit of this ancestry of the indigenous, about 20%. But you see pictures of me, you can kind of see it. I personally have a lapid phenotype, in my opinion. But you see pictures of me, you can definitely see that. But this is going to be your full-blooded, like, indigenous people from the Andes, Mayans, Comanches, Apaches. This is what you're going to see. You're going to see people in the Inuit people all across the Americas, also from Siberia as well. So I would say this is the first one here. This is your typical North Amerindian phenotype. I might have this wrong, but I would say the northern Amerindians can look pretty good. Well, actually, I think this one's is more Andes. This is more southern Mesoamerican. So I would say this one is definitely the best out of the ones we have here, because I would say a lot of pretty much all Mesoamericans before they got slopped by Western diets. I'm not knocking Western diets. I'm just saying they look at a lot of indigenous people now. A lot of them are overweight, but if you strip off that fat, you're going to see they have high cheekbones. They got pretty masculine faces. So I would say this C category, this is going to be your best out of the C category. Very, very masculine faces, very, very dimorphic. So moving on, I'm not going to talk much about it. I don't want to get too much into it. Next one, you have this is going to be your typical Mongoloid phenotype. Now, Mongoloids and Amerindians, they do share commonality, but they are different people. They're not the same people. They might have more of like the, smaller eyes. I'm not going to make fun of that. I'm just saying they have smaller eyes. They kind of have a Mongoloid skull structure, but they are different. I would say Amerindians have more of a masculine phenotype, more masculine features in general. This is going to be your Mongoloid phenotype. Not bad at all, though. If you look at Mongoloids before communism, communism really took over a lot of Siberia and even, Mongolia, they were pretty dimorphic. They ate a lot of meat. They drank a lot of milk. They had a very masculine honor culture. Now, if you look at them now, it's not the same. But I would say this is a pretty good phenotype for this category. Not bad at all. Now you have your Southeast Asians. This is going to definitely take a hit to their attractiveness than the first two. I would say if you look at Southeast Asians compared to the Amerindians and Mongolians can be pretty tall. Northern Chinese can be pretty tall. Even some Mesoamericans can be pretty tall. Now they're a lot shorter, but if you look at Northern Amerindians, they can be pretty damn tall. But I would say Southeast Asians, definitely not very attractive. They kind of have some African features too. They got big noses, huge lips. This one's eyes are far apart. A lot of them are very, very short too. They got this kind of straight black hair. Not very, like, at least with the Amerindian, they can grow their hair out and it looks pretty damn cool. So, moving on, this is gonna be your more mixed Indian phenotype. Now, people might get angry that I'm putting this a little bit below the Southeast Asian, but I would say that these two are kind of more matched. So I'm not going to say the Southeast Asians are they're not necessarily better than mixed, like the normal Indian profile. They're kind of on the same level in my opinion. This is going to be your like Indians from the normal Indians we'll see. This one's a bit more light skinned, but this is going to be heavy in Iranian Neolithic farmer and steppe ancestry. But if you look at them, the only thing really that's carrying them above this one is their lighter skin. But this phenotype might potentially be worse than this one, because all the time their bone structure is even worse than this one. But I would say these two are kind of matched. But I would say Southeast Asians have a bit of a better reputation than this one. So moving on, we have more. These are going to be your more like how should I say, exotic Amerindians. You'll see these are like in the Amazonian jungle. A lot of them are very short. A lot of them are. I would say these two can kind of go together. I think I put too many phenotypes here. I didn't need to go this much in detail, but I would say these ones are definitely, these ones you're going to see that are like especially unmixed Amerindians. These are going to be definitely at the lowest tier, in my personal opinion. So moving on to your B category. This is going to be obviously your average, your middle of the racial phenotype list. It's getting better from here, so just stay tuned. This is your Armenoid, Armenoid phenotype. People say Armenoid, but depends how you pronounce it. But this is your Armenoid phenotype. Your Armenoid phenotype is, you're going to see these obviously in Armenia, Georgia, not Azerbaijan. They're more Turkic. But this is going to be your kind of like very heavy Caucasus hunter-gatherers. You're going to see some Assyrians, a lot of Levant, people from Levant are going to have this phenotype for sure. But this isn't a bad thing. This is not a bad phenotype whatsoever. People say, oh, it's brown, but there's people from Georgia, there's people from, Armenia, there's people from even Turkey, from the Levant. They look pretty good. This one, these pictures don't do them justice, but this one has a lot of relation to the Mediterranean phenotype we're going to get into. I think this is the Mediterranean phenotype. I think this is the Denard one. These three have a lot of relation, but these ones are a bit more grayscale, so their features are not as, I would say their features are not super dimorphic, but they are not they're not like super feminine like you're going to see the East Asians ones are. So moving on, these are going to be your more lighter-skinned Amerindians. The next one here, these are going to be your ones from like Canada and the United States. These are like, I would say these are the best-looking Amerindians. This one obviously has lighter skin. These ones have higher cheekbones. These ones look a bit more Eurasianid in their phenotype. They got a bit of a more Eurasianid look to them. But these ones are, I would say, compare a Mesoamerican from South America. A lot of them just have huge lips. They have bloated faces. These ones, if you look at them when they're lean, they got like high cheekbones. They got a strong chin. They got a strong mandible, and their faces are lean. So I would say these ones, it's not a bad phenotype. I would say, I can't edit this now, but maybe this would be better than this one. But I would say these are almost equally matched. So moving on, this is your Lapid phenotype. These are going to be your like from Siberia. This is kind of like not from Finland, but you'll see a lot of people who are like Uralic people who look like this, like basically Finns who are like the Sami. These are going to be the Finns who are not European, but they have a lot of like that Sami admixture. I would say these ones are not too much of a difference, but these ones are a bit more masculine. This one's more dimorphic than this. Then you have your Turkic. This is your Turkic phenotype. These are going to be from Kazakhstan, Central Asia, Turkey, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan. So Turkic people essentially a lot of them are mixed with Eurasian ancestry, and they're obviously from Central Asia. They look Asiatic, they look Mongoloid, but they're a mix. This is the typical phenotype you'll see in like Turkey. Like Hassan Piker has this phenotype. This is a Hassan Piker phenotype. But I wouldn't put it that high because not very dimorphic. Not really dimorphic whatsoever. They got the kind of like Eurasianoid mix and the Mongolian mix, and it's not super dimorphic in my opinion. This is your typical Turkic. These are Hazaras from northern Afghanistan, very, very, glacial in terms of their appearance. Then you have your typical East Asian. This is going to be your Han, your Chinese. Nothing really special. Very flat face, flat maxilla, not a very strong chin, not dimorphic whatsoever. They're just like the nerds, you know what I mean? Like I'm not putting you guys down, Chinese down, but man, you guys got to get your shit together, Stop acting like nerds, So I would put them the lowest of the B tiers. Moving on to your A. So A and S are definitely going to be your top tier cream of the crop. So starting out, you have your glacial Mediterranean. These are going to be people from Spain, Italy, Greece, Portugal. This is your typical Southern European look. I would say it's definitely the best out of this A category. I know a lot of Italians who have this phenotype, and it's not Nordic, but it's still white, and it still is a pretty damn good phenotype. Very glacial, but this suits them because this face has, might be glacial, not super prominent in their bone structure. It still look good. So, can you really complain? Not really. And they're white, so. Moving on, you have this is your Lapid phenotype. I may stick this with that as Lapid, but this is actually Lapid. This is my phenotype specifically, because I am mixed, but your Lapid phenotype, this is going to be like, this is funny, on Twitter, it's called Fuented phenotype, but Lapid is just basically, these are like Finns. These are basically Finnish people mixed with some Asian ancestry, the Sami ancestry, but a lot of Latinos look like this, believe it or not. A lot of the like Euro mestizos, castizos can look like this. Not a bad phenotype. Just what brings them down is just the eye structure is not really there. Not that it's bad. I just would consider it worse than this one. So, very, kind of on the smaller eye side because of the Asian ancestry, but not a bad phenotype. It ain't bad. Don't get me wrong. It's a pretty good phenotype. Then you have your Denerid phenotype. This one's going to be people from the Balkans, basically your Paleo-Balkaners. So people think, the Balkans are just Slavic. They're all Slavs. They're not all Slavs. They are people from the Balkans. You have your Illyrians, you have your Dacians, Thracians. These are Balkaners who were before the migrations of the Slavs in the 8th century. So this is going to be your Albanians, your Kosovars, your Macedonians, a lot of them, Greeks, people from Bosnia and Herzegovina. These are going to be your Paleo-Balkaners. A lot of them this one really does have a lot of relation with the glacial Mediterranean, but this is more dimorphic. But I would say these are a bit too dimorphic. They got huge noses. These are going to be your people from the Balkans who are very like masculine and like but it's definitely, I would say the Southern European look is a bit more better. It is better. So moving on, you have your Agarthan tier. This is going to be your top, really, really, you can't beat this. So starting out, we have the Nordic phenotype. Nordic phenotype, in my opinion, is the best. People say, it's the Mediterranean phenotype. I mean, it ain't bad, but I would say the Nordic phenotype is best. You got everyone worships this phenotype. ethnics do, white people do. They got the blonde hair, the angular face. Their face isn't that alpinate, it's very angular. Straight, dainty nose. So this is going to be people of like United Kingdom, Sweden, Denmark, Norway. This is your northwestern European. Some people from northern France. This is going to be their phenotype. Moving on, we have the. This is going to be your Slavic, your Alpinate phenotype. These ones are going to be like your Adolf Hitlers. They got a very Alpinate face. You're going to see these people in Central Europe, from Austria. If you know what I'm talking about. From Czech Republic. They're going to be from Poland. This is your typical Slav face. I'm not saying a lot of people from Central Europe are Slavs, but they do share this kind of broader face. This phenotype, they got blonde hair, they got colored eyes, but I would say what detracts from them is they kind of got too big of a nose. But it ain't bad, They just got a more. This is going to be your Tony Soprano sort of look, the more bigger Alpinate face. Then you have your. This is going to be another Alpinate look, but this is going to be more with darker eyes, darker hair. This is going to be your another Slavic phenotype. This is going to be another Slavic phenotype. I might switch this one and this one, so I can't really change it now, but I would say this one can go in front of this one. This is going to be your Atlantic phenotype. This is going to be your people from Ireland. This is going to be your dark Britain people. People who are people kind of have the same facial structure as the Nordic, but this is going to be essentially people from France. They still have an angular face. It's not Alpinate, but they have more darker features, like darker hair, darker eyes, a bit more dimorphic. So I might actually switch this one to this one. So I can't really turn it now, but they're still pretty equal. So this is going to be your Atlantid phenotype. So Ireland, Wales, France, still Nordic in terms of bone structure, but just with darker features, which I think is a bit more, can be not necessarily more attractive than the Nordic, but still very, very close. But anyways, guys, this does it for this video. Share it with people that need to hear this message about phenotypes. If you got offended, I'm sorry, but this is reality, and I'm not going to censor myself because just to try to make yourselves feel better. But anyways, video's over. Just hope you enjoyed, but if not, stay tuned.